I'm a chief expert at the Kaspersky lab, and I've been with the company since 2005. I am also a graduate of MFA. I'm a security guy. I am known for discovering a bunch of 0 days, and I do have a bunch of publications as well. But I'm usually appreciated because I do DFIR and RIMA. So I do digital forensics, incident response. Like I provide, expert guidance to courts, for example, on digital matters. So I do reverse engineering and malware analysis. That is, we study the functional capabilities of malicious code. We do have conferences, and I speak at these conferences, and I love talking about, some of the, interesting or unusual attacks and techniques and practices until this day. After that day, lots of things changed. Well, that was the morning of the 24th of February. We got many of our employees were called with this information that we should be expecting a spike in incidents. So we decided that, we had to prepare for it, right? And we work in shifts. We have 2 shifts. And usually, when we respond to an incident, we send 2 people. We need 2 people because, a single person, may fail to notice something. And then, a single expert can get something wrong. So, at 5 o'clock, usually we have 2 people sitting red-eyed and they're talking about what they see. Do you see what I see? Yeah, I do. Contrast it with just, the same person doing it, only one. And then we decided that, okay, we also need like the 3rd shift. Like, if we run out of people, that's me actually, I'm in the last tier of defense. And if 5 left and we get another call, then what? We're sorry. There are other companies, please talk to them. And the other companies, they'll go like, what do you mean? Can you imagine what it's like for us as well? So we've run out of everything, blockers and hard drives, and we run out of space for storage of whatever we take as we investigate an incident, servers, hard drives, and what have you. Like we physically ran out of this space. It was almost funny. So I come in, I put my laptop on the sofa, and then they shout from that room, like, what's the next laptop for inspection? So he grabs my MacBook, and he's carrying it there. So it was that bad. So if we're talking about, numbers, well, you can check our statistics. So we have KSN, Kaspersky Security Network, which collects information across all our products. So if there is an AV, for example, running on your machine, which has detected something, okay, well, it will get in touch with us, identify such and such malware, such and such checksum. Same is true for who calls. So we've got this mobile app. If you're getting a call, the system will actually detect it as fraudulent or non-fraudulent. And this is who calls statistics. Now the product is called who calls, not cuckolds. The official name is who calls. KWC. Whoever broke out laughing at this joke is no longer my friend, okay? But, this chart obviously shows that day. In some countries, on the 24th of February, there was not a single fraudulent phone call on that day. But we saw that. Well, naturally, everything is back to normal, and we are seeing this roller coaster ride. Actually, it's not really back to early February levels. What's the reason for that? Well, many people have been talking about it, and many people have been wondering or guessing it, but it was only on the 15th of April that on Channel 1 in the Russian Federation, they had a show where they showed a call center in Berdyansk, where these fraudulent callers were based. Now, if we remember this fact, then we can actually guess, what it's all about when we see a similar dip in other charts. So this is our search engine scouring the dark web. Like everybody knows that on dark web, you need to register, there's some moderation, you improve your reputation there. And then, you can read and index stuff there. Same is true for Telegram channels. Now, what we care about in this chart is names of banks and dumping of cards. The number of adverts on that day, the one I'm certain I'm talking about, drops, and then, there is a spike, and then it goes down, and naturally, now it's close to zero because Russian cards are no longer stable currency, are no longer legal tender. So we have this map, and yes, obviously we are talking about millions of detections. So we've got our statistics, which should actually help us see, which country is safe online. Like, if you ask yourself, what's the probability you'll find a virus online in a given year? Like 15 years ago, if you were in Russia, the probability would be 75%. There was no chance, you wouldn't see this red window of your AV. 10 years later, so this chart is as of late 2021, your chances are 15%. It's not even 50-50. Which means that, regulators and cybersecurity people, they've been actually doing a good job. Because this number seems to be going down, or it has been going down, or it had been going down.
Вы, кстати, зацените вот это число 19.05. Это самый свежий.
1905. This is the freshest you can do. I made this presentation this morning. And now this chance is 33%. And around Russia, it's close to 50%. So I can tell you, by the end of the year, it will be at least that. Now, we all know what false positives are. We do hope. There were lots of false positives as we compiled this map. That's why we're only going to release our official data at the end of the year. However, we do see that the number of AV alerts has certainly gone up. Now, if we take a look at the evolution of detections day after day, will look like this. This is global. And probably you won't be able to see that very day here. And this is same for Russia. You will see this drop, right? And just like we saw with phone fraud, there was a fall and then there was a spike. We can actually predict that this 20% drop here
которые почему-то не смогли заниматься своими обычными делами.
It's the people who no longer could ply their own business, their usual business.
Если мы дальше идем, а что же, например, это были за программы?
And what kind of software are we talking about here? There are some charts that have gone up. Obviously, DDoS has been on the rise. All those who have been responding to DDoS, they've been pretty busy these days. What has also gone up is backdoors propagating via email. So attachments or links you get in email, taking you to macros or Word documents or whatever. So the number of such attachments has certainly gone up. Okay, they got initial access, it takes just a single moron to open a letter like this. What's next? Well, next is encryption. Well, you don't really see that fateful day on this particular chart. Now, if you build a trend line here, you will see there was a bit of a drop there, but now we see peaks happening later. It's really interesting, where these peaks are. Like, we do remember the Russian cartons, so to speak, like Russian cards. Nobody needs them, right? So the Russians absolutely need to put their money in crypto. So encryptors have done, what they did. But interestingly enough, they did not demand money.
Альтруисты, да?
Altruists, you think?
Альтруисты. Ну и, собственно говоря, если сделать стримлайн на весь этот график, то будет видно, что он идет вверх.
Now, if you do the trend line, you will see that it's rising now.
Периодически публиковали, это про то, что там, соответственно, это про бэкдоры в почте.
Okay, you must have read those releases from us about backdoors and remote access tools. Number of cyber incidents in Russian companies has quadrupled. Actually, we are talking here about sophisticated incidents. This is, for us, a sophisticated incident is when your domain controller gets hijacked. In the number of cases, the number of calls, where we don't really know what to do, and the case seems to be totally causes loss, and I'm not even sure I'm talking to the customer, It has certainly gone up. Let me tell you this story about DDoS. So 24th of February, and DDoS attacks started right away. The industry noticed them. And all of them were floods. It was interesting and maybe funny. So everybody started doing geo-IP filtration, which means that now you can no longer pay with your Mir card over a VPN, and you will not be able to enter a gos-uslugi if you're using VPN. And this has triggered all these memes about having to switch your VPN off all the time. So if we see a European IP, we'll block it. Next, we started experiencing L7 DDoS attacks. This was more fun. The number of bots you need in order to down a site at the L3 level, you need like hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. But for L7, it's different, because for L7, 10,000 bots would be okay. So you find an API on the website, and you down the whole site by overloading this API. What's funny about it is that, like, we do know that some totally relevant APIs will not be allowed, but you can use proxies, and some proxies in their headers contain information on who's using them. This is where it gets funny. You must have heard about attribution before. So we have a DDoS attack, and this means we have logs. In logs, we have X headers, which show the proxy, and we show the IP. And, well, it actually shows the user who asks the proxy to forward his packet. And it contains the URL of whoever is behind the proxy. So I start Googling it, and I find GitHub. I grab the link to GitHub, and I find a Telegram channel where 10,000 people on this particular Telegram channel, they've all got avatars. You can read things about them.
там тоже с аватаркой.
And on GitHub, people also have accounts, and they've got avatars. And, you can read this Telegram channel, and it will say,
Вот эту вот, значит,
guys,
фигню
use this,
вот этот вот проксик,
indicate this proxy, and let's attack
вот этих.
these guys.
Задача атрибуции не была такой простой. Никогда.
Attribution has never been so easy.
Кто нас дедосит, и ты такой, вот они.
Like, if you're asked, who is DDoSing us? And you tell them, well, here is the Telegram group. Arrest all the 10,000.
Ну и, собственно говоря, люди, которые это все делают, это все без страха и упрека. То есть вообще плевать на все.
And, people who do that, they are undauntable.
Пошло после этого дня.
Now, technically speaking,
Интересно.
what has been interesting since that time? I should probably tell you a particular case, right? A Telegram channel of this kind. It's official, actually.
Ну и количество просмотров, если там зайдете, можете посмотреть.
The number of views is pretty good. You can browse it, see the targets, and compare the number of bots you actually saw on your perimeter, and compare it to the size of this group. It's like 1 to 10. In this Telegram channel, there will be a lot of shit. And this shit actually got in our way. For example, we know that on Telegram there are some decent channels about leaks. So they say, well, there is this dump on a forum, and people responsible for, security at a given company is being called, and then, we need to actually double check if indeed, this dump really happened and which particular database was leaked. So previously,
Ну, то есть, пример, у тебя есть SQL-ный dump.
Cases when, total shit would be presented there as a dump. You come to a company and it turns out that the company doesn't have servers like this, doesn't have databases like this. There's no clue, you don't have any clue why you actually came. The number of this fake, well, it's not even fake calls, but they are fake leaks, has grown significantly. So if you trust these guys, Kaspersky Labs has had its source code stolen twice already. And they will say, well, wait a little bit, we are going to upload the dump, and we're going to see how in the source code of Kaspersky Labs, they are using, source code of Klimova. So 2 weeks later, they put a site up on Tor where they presented all our public files from our domains. This actually can be done very easily with vget -r command. And then on Twitter, you can read it if you're interested. There are photos of clowns. Like, what the heck are you doing? Like, are you serious? Do you remember this case of a DDoS attack against Burger King? Like, kids, quiet down and go do your homework. Now, the problem with these kids is that, as a security service provider, I still need to react. Like, I'm told, go check the logs. When they say the same, like for the second time, we didn't even check the logs, the second time. And they uploaded this zip archive on Telegram. So if you check the header of the file, it says, includes copyright Kaspersky Lab 2007. That was a real leak back in 2007. So MD5s didn't match. So inside the archive, they removed the timestamps of the files, and they presented it as a new leak. Should I react? No.
Что еще? Почему все это делается без страха и упрека? То, что, например, с точки зрения закона, это понятно.
And like I said, they're undauntable. Because, from the legal perspective, all this stuff is against the law. However, the case of this IT army is like this. Now there is this thing called foreign legion. So, for example, a citizen of some country, can arrive in this continent and go kill people. And that will be legal. So if you're a citizen of some other country and you want to join the IT army, like, is that legal? Not really. I mean, that's a moot case. Like, with arms, it's okay. We're used to having foreign lynching, but, with cyber arms, not so clear. That's why people started talking about legalizing it all. Like, let's prohibit extradition of people for cybercrime.
И получается у нас такая офигительная ситуация, то, что в Telegram-канале там люди просто там с номерами телефонами, с
So on Telegram channel, people got avatars, their photos, their phone numbers. And after they do all this, they won't have to pay.
Первые самые инциденты, которые начались 24 февраля,
the incidents that started on the 24th of February, they were like that.
То есть, причем, ты приезжаешь, и то есть сеть лежит, ничего не работает. Там
the network is down, nothing is working. You're checking because the virtual machines are still there on the hard drives. But then you can find this stuff in the batch history. So you can check the deletion date, you'll go to logs, you'll see who connected, and in most cases, you can see the root and an IP associated with Kyivstar.
Понятно? Ну, понятно. Спустя несколько дней...
A clear-cut case, isn't it? Several days later, and obviously that's not a standalone, that's not a single incident. So several days later, they started amping it up. Like, the question is, like, how did he get root access? The stuff that we found at first, were very simple scripts. That would write the right parameters into SHR config, and then, the root user would be able to do whatever they liked.
Они такие, а давай сделаем rsync.
Then the people who wiped it, they decide, well, how about we do rsync before we wipe it? Well, isn't that logical, right? I mean, we are killing everything, aren't we? So they started doing rsyncs. And all the incidents related to publication of lots of data started happening then. And in large companies, databases which are serving huge clientele, they've got databases measured in petabytes, rsyncing petabytes. Will take forever. That's why they were doing rsync for backups. So they take the backup, they rsync it, they get it, they upload it to their Telegram channel. Then they delete everything. See where I'm taking it, see where I'm going. Then you take the same backup and you install it back.
Что? Кто сказал, я так делал?
Who said I did that?
Ну и еще разок, если мы посмотрим, опять же, то есть мы приезжаем, например, у нас есть логи все, да, то есть у нас есть...
So we have the logs, we got the security log,
все изменения на файлы системы, мы понимаем, что...
We see the changes in the file system,
и там, честно говоря, уже Tor, VPN...
We do the investigation.
Могут приходить напрямую вообще
And you know what?
Делать все, что угодно.
They could have done it over GPRS. Tor or VPN is not required because, they are unfettered. They know they won't be persecuted. I said that most of the dumps are fakes, but some are real. This is where this whole search for the perpetrator is over. Like, attribution is very serious. But do not underestimate Ukraine's volunteer hackers. In the first days, when they would wipe and rsync everything, they apparently ran into a problem. They lost their access rights. They had used all the everything they had, so to speak. And then, they started this campaign on Telegram where they would tell people, we will pay you 2,000 euros for launching this exe file wherever you are, like at work.
То там те CVE-шки, которые использовались, это были
So
exchange.
the CVEs that were, exploited, were actually Log4j, Maniatna, or Exchange, dating back to early 2021. There was nothing interesting, nothing novel about those particular cases. Like, if you are concerned about supply chain attacks, don't be. It was very simplistic. It was very effective. It was very painful, particularly given that everything got wiped. But they exhausted their pool. That's why they started their mass mailing campaigns several weeks after the 24th of February. Red line is the first stealer, and it got detected by everybody. It's a binary. Under different guises, it was promoted. Some people would put it in the attachment. It's a large one, actually. Others, would try to pull it up as a macros for Excel. Second one was Dark Crystal. Very similar, in fact, to Red Line. And interestingly, it can be managed via Telegram as well. It has lots of functions such as stealing crypto wallets. And the most interesting thing is that it was actually promoted as a federal antivirus. When it was released, we did not have a sample. Like, the news was there, but, we didn't have an MD5 for it. We started looking in our database. We got a letter saying, well, install the federal antivirus. How do you think they called the exe file? Like, we're thinking it would be called federal antivirus.exe. It was called federal antivirus without the N. And we couldn't find it. Yes, they did it on purpose so that, we couldn't protect against it. So they would use targeted orders like spear phishing campaigns, and all the links would lead to a cloud. And you do remember GeoIP protection is in place. That's why this cloud was in the Russian territory, and yes, it did have the exe file in it. Okay, so this letter got sent, and some people did open it. And the next wave was beacons. Now, the previous presentation told you nasty things. Now, beacons are bad. What kind of beacons were there? Now, you've heard about namepipe, but here it was funny. Now, there is public key in the config of beacon, and you can use this public key in order to identify who owns the license. In all these cases, this public key is, a pirated Chinese beacon. I'm not even going to tell you the version. But in the CNC config file, there were very interesting hubs. So there are manuals on how to hide beacon CNCs. And for example, you can use public services to that end. For example, you have a web server, you connect to it, and then in the host name, you actually indicate your desired path. So all these beacons were effectively built on Azure, but connections to the initial APIs were quite different. So IPs were different, but inside the host name field, so to speak, it was all the same. So it's either it's Chinese beacon going to QQ.com, or the other beacon, would talk to Azure.com. So okay, these are the Chinese, and these are non-Chinese.
После этих биконов, ну, собственно говоря, стандартные средства эксфильтрации данных, распространения по сети.
And after the beacons, well, exfiltration, mimikatz, and lateral movement. Nothing really special.
Изначально я вам рассказывал про то, что первые вот коннекты рута были.
I initially told you that the first, root connectors were SSR spy rootkits. Now, for Linux infrastructure, they did.
И, соответственно, rootkitов у нас было.
They started installing rootkits, and we saw several types of rootkits. Some were simply downloaded off GitHub, but others were effectively recompilations of LTSO. So it's a dynamic library which can inject any lib in any process. And this way you should be able to hide from netstat and others to remain unseen. So if they do get inside now, this is how they did. And I guess the funniest bit is about Node.js. Everybody knows what Node.js is, right? Node.js is a bastard, if you ask me. So we got exposed to it in 2020 and 2021, and all the incidents around Node.js back then were like serious, real-life incidents. And Node.js, this interpreter, 60 megabytes long, would be registered as a service. So if they wanted to, persist on a host, they would install it. And they would, for example, schedule a task in 9 months, so to speak. So it started. And, this way you're guaranteed to have an incident like 9 months later, when Node.js starts. And there is huge variability as regards what Node.js will do. Now, what we're seeing right now is that Node.js is effectively a matryoshka, stacking doll, because Node.js will start, and it can start as a service, or as a task, or it come from a macros in a letter. There will be an URL to JavaScript. It's obfuscated. You deobfuscate. You find eval, which means you need to go to another site and look for another JS, which is also obfuscated. It's quite a stacking doll, right? You need to go through at least 3 hops until you get your shell. A shell on Node.js. That's perverse.
Спустя, например, неделю-две пройти все эти хопы по разным IP-шникам.
However, going through all these hops and doing it quickly is pretty difficult. So if this incident happened fast, like they've encrypted your system, well, it certainly gets noticed, right? And these hops are still alive. Well, then, if you go there quickly, you can restore the system. If they sat on their arms and sat on their hands several weeks, not anymore. But, if you only see that, this interpreter, was launched, but you don't really know what it did and what it downloaded, too bad for you. Okay, they launched the shell. What now? Now is GitHub, awesome Node.js for pen testers. It's Nmap on JS. It has dynamic loaders in memory. Reflective loaders. A reflective loader on Node.js. Isn't that a torture? So naturally, from that moment on, you can actually start downloading exe files like mimikatz. But no. Why? That would be too simple, right? We want it all to be running Node.js and, to be running in memory all the time. So my conclusions are like this. All the incidents after 24th of February are in fact old incidents, like old excesses. Now, if you actually check out the Telegram channels for these leaks, you will see that although they're advertising it as a recent leak, the SQL dump will contain data going back to 2021 because, it's backup data. How do they get access to these backups? Through old accesses, so to speak, and they use Java vulnerabilities and Exchange vulnerabilities. Now, if you're afraid that there were APTs or 0 days or supply chain attacks or UEFI attacks, forget it. It was run-of-the-mill stuff. Even when they were wiping it, it was so simple. They either did it through RDP or SSH.
Учитывая то, что практически нету, знаете, в этой стране не осталось ни одной компании, которая бы не
In this country, there is not a single company left that would not react to this instance. I wonder why. They lost all the hooks they had. That's why they, redoubled their phishing campaigns. They are creative at times, but not very productive, I think. Node.js of GitHub. It's standardized malware. All this stuff is easy to catch with forensics. It's relatively easy to detect. Now, if they clean the logs up, this doesn't really thwart forensics. Now, if you check bash history, if you see people are ramming war logs, take my word for it, restoring them is not that difficult. So my conclusion. In the charts, we have seen a pretty characteristic dip and a pretty characteristic spike. For example, the dip in phone fraud, pretty easy to explain. But what about the spike? How come several months later, it all rebounds? I don't really know. Do you remember this very volatile charts? I think that, mathematically speaking, this oscillation should die down in the next several months. And after emotions, when they did wipes, they finally realized, okay, maybe we should rsync. And what about the rootkits? And maybe not just the rootkits, but maybe we should also delete the logs. So we are seeing evolution, and pretty rapid evolution. With this kind of evolution, where will they be several months down the road? Let's wait and see. But again, take my word for it, at the moment, we are not seeing anything out of the ordinary. In my presentations at PhD, I usually use memes. Not this time. Or shall I? I should probably finish with a meme, right? To end my presentation.
Мне обещали выдать 2 футболки, которые я должен вам отдать за лучшие вопросы.
Now, I promised to give 2 T-shirts to people who ask the best questions. I see 2 hands. This must be people who really want the T-shirts.
Спасибо за доклад, Кулагин Руслан.
Thanks, I'm Ruslan Kulagin. I have 2 questions. First one.
Начался очень активный патчинг.
Well, after this day, fateful day, software patching,
негативно настроенный патчинг, из-за чего очень быстро
shall I say, negative patching, became very popular. And there were, in fact, I'm wondering if there were incidents related to Node.js. No. But TeamViewer has left.
На это будут направлены атаки или уже направлены, было или нет?
I'm wondering if there are any attacks related to that. Well, everybody has switched now to AnyDesk. That's it. Now with TeamViewer, you can have TeamViewer in place, or you can install it while it's no longer available. Then you're using AnyDesk, and it's used both by admins and hackers. In this respect, nothing has changed. Off my question. You mean RAT? Something about the payload, but...
Можно легитимно, можно хайд. То есть там иконка, да, вот ты имеешь в виду? Можно ее схайдить, можно не хайдить.
You mean the icon, like which can be hidden or not?
Ну, можно патчить TeamViewer, можно было просто не патчить его.
You can patch TeamViewer.
Вариация чувака.
Or not.
Ну, кто-то использует, кто-то не использует. И к тому же, ну что...
Some people are using it, others are not.
Папочка, да кто ее заметит?
So, who will notice a new folder in program files if you are managing a fleet of 20,000 computers?
Прошу вас.
Right, and you don't really need a patch for that. So you mentioned that the number of attacks, and you also showed the map, has gone up. Would you think that after a particular day, the companies that, previously didn't use your services, they just ran straight to you, scanned everything and reported to KSN? It's a possibility, yes. I'll try to be very careful in my comment here. This map covers a relatively short period of time. If you study it in detail, you will discover some very weird users. Now, there is this person who took, for example, a free-to-use version of our AS, and, like 5 beacons are detected, beacon 6 is not detected, and, well, I would, calculate them all. So interpreting this data may be tricky. Well, in any case, last year, we saw nothing like this. Like, I wonder what it is, why people would install AVs like crazy. Jesus freaking Christ.
Такой вопрос появился. Сказали, что не появилось новых атак, но можно сказать о том,
So you say there are no new attacks. Well, isn't DDoS attacking now people, not infrastructure? Are you a journalist, aren't you? You can certainly say that, we've got freedom of speech. You can say whatever you like. Thank you. No, but I'm serious. 25th of February was Friday, right? And people who do, DDoS defense, and that's not my line of work, I'm reading logs. So the IT people, they wouldn't sleep, they wouldn't eat.
По-моему, статья в Реутусе там вышла, что 25 февраля, в ночь 25
I think there was an article on Reuters,
там была такая статья,
when the Americans woke up. So the article said that Russia, has raised its cyber shield. Like, this is our geo-IP system being switched on. If it, warrants defense in the name of a cyber shield, then it is. Well, I can tell you that, some people have not been sleeping much, or were not sleeping much. It was not like an L8 kind of attack. No, I mean, nothing out of the blue. So this cyber, was it cyber shield or cyber shit? Because shit is Russian for shield. Take the mic away from that gentleman. I'm Kirill Rupasov. Have you seen incidents related to admins getting panicky? So maybe, they were trying to get things right, and in the process, they would, break everything. Like, we saw cases where people would, do RM/RF and be in trouble. Well, we had one incident involving proactive employees. So there was a lady who was very proactive. Let me explain what she did.
Короче, логов нет. Есть машинка. У этой машинки есть IP.
There are no logs. So there is a host with IP, but it has no logs. We cannot really see who got connected to it. So what do? TCP dump? Now, whoever gets connected to it gets noticed. And in order to minimize traffic, we switch it on at 3 a.m. And we found that. And very ecstatic about it. And then we learned that a proactive employee decided to work at night. Like we had sounds of questions to that person.
Пришлось, перенести этот эксперимент, скажем так, на другой день.
And then, we had to reschedule this experiment and discover that nobody else is that proactive. One of our clients started discovering on Twitter, Telegram, and GitHub IPs from their pool, and maybe their phone as well. So he started asking us, what should I do about it? And we'd tell them, how about you send a message to Twitter and GitHub? Would you have any other recommendations? Deleting data from Twitter and GitHub, like deleting data from the internet. Need I answer this question? How do I delete my IP from Twitter?
И чё? Есть айпишник. Нет, не...
But what's the problem, really? I mean, you know what? You can do what Roskomnadzor would do. You can block Twitter and GitHub. Oh, shit.
Ничего, к сожалению, ничего.
No, but I'm afraid this is it, really. Just forgive him and keep it there.
Привет. У меня два вопроса. Первый.
Hi, two questions. How was Node.js delivered? And would you think that Node.js is a trend now for pen testers? Two ways of delivery. The first one is that you have an XLS with a macros inside, and the macros invokes cmd.exe, which will then download the exe file from the official node.jsfoundation.com. And the second one was the PowerShell way. So a web applet. So PowerShell would download and install it.
Google Update.exe.
And file name was googleupdate.exe. It's a signed file. It was easy to launch. Most incidents that you covered are at the level of script kiddies, right? Like people previously would do that to get noticed. Absolutely. Do you think that when at the same time, APTs or other serious people, would actually get inside the perimeter and are, persisting there. In just that we're not noticing them because of, the whole hullabaloo. Well, is it possible that you haven't spotted something you have never seen before? Yes, it's theoretically possible. Is that a good guess or not a good one? As an expert, I hate questions like, is it possible? Everything is possible. And if the aliens arrive tomorrow, they will be able to argue with me on that. But my counter question is like this. Are there signs of that? Is it possible there is an APT? It is possible. Are there signs that there is an APT we don't see? What could be those signs? For example, there is an incident and nobody learns about it. But I don't think so. No, the stuff we've been fighting, it's all been public. Even if it wasn't in the news, at least the cybersecurity community knows about them all. And I can tell you that we experienced no poltergeists.
Там не было такого, что вот это значит какой-то там апта, значит она прошила в UEFI.
We never felt that, some APT embedded their payload in the UEFI firmware at the factory. No. I have got so far no signs of anything like this happening. So how do I deliver this, great speeches and where to get myself a t-shirt. Well, you should either drink more or you should drink less, but I don't know how much you drink. I'm afraid drinking is not the answer. This has been the sexiest presentation today. Thank you so much, dear friends. What about Russian hackers? See, I'm Kaspersky Labs. There are people from ESET. You should be asking them, okay? Well, because they, people from ESET, they respond to incidents there. We respond to incidents here. What do you mean invite them over? Invite them over where? Have you heard that planes don't fly anymore? You know what? There are lots of publications. And I believe that's pretty much the same shit has been happening there. Vipers are binary.
Там бинарные вайперы. Но, еще раз, у них там тоже такого не было, что там что-то там массово, там что-то...
And I don't think that they've experienced anything out of the ordinary either.
Непонятное, неизвестное ранее что-то случилось, у них там такого нет. Но вайперы и прочее, все у них там есть.
Well, they've got their share of vipers. Well, people are saying things on Telegram,
Болтать в Телеграм. Ты Телеграм не читай.
But you shouldn't really read Telegram, right?
То есть, если вначале, скажу так тебе про Телеграм, если вначале мы еще как-то следили за новостями,
if at first we still monitored the news, like we felt we had to, like several weeks later, we couldn't care less. Well, because, you've got specific people to help and specific computers to save. You don't really have the time to read the news or Telegram.
То, что пишут в Telegram, никак вообще. Это не имеет никакого отношения. Поэтому сейчас, я тебе честно скажу, я не читал и даже не собираюсь.
So I haven't been reading Telegram for quite some time, nor am I planning to. And, people writing in Telegram and people responding to incidents are two different crowds. Sergey?
Привет.
Так, всем привет. Спасибо, Сергей, за отличную лекцию. Наверное, самую...
Thank you very much for such a rockstar lecture. Must be the most interesting today. I hope this does not detract or insult the other lectures. So there was this question about removing data from the internet. Lots of people actually, maybe hosters or registrars, be it Yandex or Twitter, they always have, an email for abuse. I know from experience that, this is something to use. So provide the artifacts, send a letter. If they're a if they're a legit institution, the probability that they will respond is actually pretty high. Just do it. Like, I'm speaking from experience, and it will work even with foreign vendors. And I will support that. Question. So the question has been about the incidents related to our neighbor country. And we may be assuming that lots of hacks are initiated there.
Под которым, конечно, сейчас работают и специальные...
It would be reasonable to assume, shall I say, that, with this whole hullabaloo, some more advanced threats such as APTs would also want to use it, to promote their interests. So I'm wondering if at Kaspersky Labs you have seen any increase in advanced activity. I understand your question. I respond to incident. I don't really know who the attacker is. It may be an insider, or an APT, or a hacker. Once I've answered the questions, once I've done my investigation, I can say, we saw this MD5 in such and such attack, and it may be an APT. I can tell you that the overall level has gone up. we respond more, we discover more, and we find more things that can be attributed to sophisticated threats, like this beacon, for example. Well, the previous speaker talked a lot about beacons. I will not be able, going forward, to identify if I see a beacon, if it comes from an APT or just, an avid reader. Well, APTs, they are often, attributed on the basis of specialized software. We have not discovered anything radically new in these attacks. It has always been, old shit. It's not just, a new MD5, that's we could not reverse engineer something that, is beyond our capability. Nothing like that. Give him a t-shirt. Alexei Grushov. A philosophical question of sorts. So Killnet being popular quite now, and Revel was previously considered state-sponsored organization. How ethical do you think how ethical are Russian hackers considered today? It makes me think of this joke about conscription. No, it hasn't really changed, Now, on the ransomware front, for example, Conti is the only important thing, where one hacker became an independent researcher and he started publishing on Twitter all the dirt on the whole group. So he's got his issues, and I think this is how he's effectively trying to keep all the dirt on Russian hackers and get himself a decent name. But globally speaking, nothing has really changed. Hacknet or Killnet? Killnet is the name, right?
Во-первых, скажу так, у меня инцидента с ними не было.
Well, I haven't yet had a single incident with Killnet. So those who get an incident with them, they will, get to talk about it, I guess. But I'm on the other side. I actually don't think that if this dude, for example, he, if he refocused on RU, does he really think that, they will drop their charges against him for that? No way. Now, what I mean is that there is rumor that when Russian hackers are, apprehended in Russia, after that they start working for the law enforcement agencies. It's a rumor, right? I don't comment on rumors. Is that it? Have I exhausted your questions? No. Jesus freaking Christ. Guys, this is like 6 p.m. already. I hope this will be the last question. Thank you very much for your report. So you started with figures, and somehow people are mostly interested in TNTs. So we've been in this paradigm for this 3 months, and very often we hear a comparison of what's happening right now to the start of the pandemic. So, where are you seeing more hysteria, now or in the first 3 months of COVID? In COVID times, there was no drop. Everything started climbing in COVID times, and that's it. And particularly on the rise during COVID times was fraud targeting individuals. People are staying home, the money is running out, they start selling stuff on, eBays of this world, and they get defrauded. People are spending more time online, people click links they shouldn't click, and therefore, fraud goes up. But, it's much more hectic now. Now is not the time for a petty fraud, like phone fraud.
То, что по мозгам больше бьет, это на самом деле вопрос отдельный. Скажу так,
Your question is slightly different. It's about psychological reaction and hysteria. It's a different question. During the pandemic times, when, the lockdown rules were pretty strict, we had cases when we were not allowed to respond to an incident. And we, had people who would talk to client security people and instruct them on the phone, like, grab the server, not this server. That was horrible, really. But now, it's a normal life. We are in shifts. We're responding to incidents. No restriction on travel. So I would put it like this. The difference is significant. There was this old joke. Like, if it's a rotavirus, not coronavirus, this whole mask business will seem trifling. I think what we're having right now is a sort of a rotavirus. Okay, 2 more questions, I will call it today. What it is I had to give away? Can I give the T-shirts right away? I need a T-shirt. So with GeoIP's blocking system, there have been lots of misfires, so to speak. And what about DDoS attacks at DNS? Does make sense for us to start our own servers? Well, the particular institution you're talking about did have issues, and I think that their file zones, were Europe, right? And when they started kicking Russia out of different organizations, this when problems started heaping up, started mounting. So ICANN and ARPANET or RIPNET, they all said, we are not going to disconnect Russia from the internet. However, DNSs are no longer being updated. And DDoS attacks started. But wait a sec. So short-term issues with DNSs are there, or were there rather, and they were all compensated for. So talk to TCE. They know this stuff. And I'm in no position really to tell them how they should be working. This is outside my subject matter field. A question about Chinese firewalls, and please do not dismiss it by talking about alcohol, okay?
Это вопрос у вас был там. Ну давай.
Is that the same question again?
Я расскажу про Чебурнет.
Okay.
Это вопрос про Чебурнет. Это вопрос про
Okay, the question is about Cheburnет, right?
Он или нет. Смотрите, расскажу так. Смотрите, когда, вот, например, детекты идут по блокируем мы, например, телефонные номера, да, чтобы они не...
So when we are, for example, detecting phone calls from a number one block.
Если посмотреть, сколько там вот эти вот на этом графике было телефонов номеров, то там просто
And if you consult my charts, you will discover like a million phone numbers like this. So,
он конечен. Получается, что мы реально за несколько там недель просто несколько...
In just several weeks,
10% всех телефонов и номеров заблокировали.
We've blocked like 10% of all phone numbers.
Мы, соответственно, начинаем добавлять сначала айпишники.
Now with DDoS, first we're adding IPs, then subnets to DevNull, then geo IP, and the system is not ideal as we know. And finally, it turns out that we are dropping hundreds of millions of IPs. And then a month or 2 later, it became a problem because emails no longer get sent and phones no longer ring, which means that we are actually building ourselves a dumbed-down version of the internet. It's not that they have pulled a switch on us. We have dumbed our internet down by blocking so many resources. And again, I'm in no position to talk on behalf of the state. I'm only able to talk about IPs.
Нет, потом, все.
Tell us what to expect. Come on, go have a rest, okay? I will tell you personally later. This will be the last question. Hi, thanks for your report. Interesting incidents you've covered. We all know that the human factor is extremely funny, isn't it? I'm wondering if there have been any any incidents
и более таких радикальных политических взглядов, соответственно, сами устраивали эти инциденты. Если да, то...
Where security professionals, like had some political views so that they would wreak havoc. Actually, this was the first question we were asked.
Родственники в зоне сейчас, да, что вот он там...
So people would say, you know what, my relatives are there where the war is.
Такой активной гражданской позиции, скажем так, чтобы прямо на работу, там, 24 февраля.
Cases where a person would come to work on the 24th of February, would log into the system and would off his workplace, wipe the whole system, has never happened, at least in our experience. All the wiping happened remotely. Well, our customers did their own investigations. Now, I can talk about my own practice. I don't know of a case like this. Is it possible? Yes, it sure is. And this is one of the first questions we will be asking. But I personally have not seen a single case like this so far. Thank you. And let me award the T-shirts. So you get the black one for your APT question. And who asked me about macros and PowerShell? Node.js? Here you go.
Все, пожалуйста. Все, пока!